The situation along the Indo-Pakistan border continues to remain relatively calm. However, Indian forces remain on high alert. Prime Minister Modi visited Punjab's Adampur airbase and interacted with Air Force personnel, calling their contributions unimaginable, exemplary and outstanding. Remember, Adampur was one of the military sites that Pakistan attempted to attack last week. In his first address to the nation since Operation Sindoor, Prime Minister Modi said that India will not tolerate any form of nuclear threat from Pakistan and called for the use of made-in-India defence equipment. He added that the halting of hostilities between India and Pakistan does not mean that Operation Sindoor is over or that India is backing down. He reiterated that this is only a pause. He said that India's display of overwhelming force over the last few days was a warning to Pakistan and every other nation. He ended by saying that India will no longer tolerate terrorism in any form. But what could be the lessons from Operation Sindoor? Joining us to talk about this is India's former Home Secretary, G.K. Pillai. Mr. Pillai, thank you very much for joining us. I'd like you to first weigh in on the US role in this crisis. How do you think the US got involved? And what really made Donald Trump go to the extent of saying that they brought India and Pakistan to stop hostilities and stop fighting?
I think to an extent, we still do not have full information. But what I can make out from what has been said and what the Americans have said and what other news has come out, I think the attacks by the Indian forces on the Pak military establishment on the night of 9th-10th was serious enough where the Pakistanis, I think, felt a little threatened of their nuclear weapons cache. And I think they then took up the matter with the United States to say that Pakistan is being put into a position where we might have to react with nuclear weapons. And I think that was the time when I think all the top American officials moved in to intervene.
That is an important point, sir. What do you think is the big lesson from Operation Sindoor? We've emerged victorious in terms of hitting at the terror camps in Pakistan, the command control centers of the Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed. We were able to hit Pakistani air bases. But if there were certain lessons over the last 1 week, according to you, which would be perhaps the most important?
I think our initial plan that we would hit only terrorist bases, that was, I think, completely successful. I think casualties, we don't know the actual numbers, but at least we know that a few senior leaders of the terrorist groups were killed. The funeral proceedings, which were in fact orchestrated by the terrorist groups and had presence of senior army officers, is a clear indication that we have managed to kill a few senior persons. Some are still there, and I think a message has gone to them very clearly that they are not immune by being close to any army establishment or within Pakistan, even in the Punjab province.
Do you also believe, sir, it will be very important for India to also see how the propaganda war goes on in future? We were very good in terms of fact-checking all the propaganda coming from Pakistan. But do you think this also highlights an aspect of warfare that we must continue to win, the PR war, the propaganda war, not just between India and Pakistan, but globally as well?
Yeah, I think it is important. I think two important lessons which we have learned. One is our own TV channels, who I think completely deviated from the government position, if I might say, the official position by the Foreign Secretary and the armed forces, that we were striking at terrorist camps and we would retaliate only against Pak military bases. I think the media went totally berserk, talking of attacks on Karachi and Islamabad and Indian forces crossing the border and so on, giving an impression as though this was an Indian aggression against Pakistan. I think the media went totally overboard and we lost the plot a little bit there. The second I think is important is that now that you have a new administration and a new president of the United States, who, shall I say, says what he says off the cuff and what somebody tells him orally. We can see very clearly, somebody who talks of a 1,000-year war between India and Pakistan, when Pakistan has been in existence only for 75 years, obviously means that he has not been briefed. And therefore, I think it is important for us to be able to diplomatically convey India's position far more seriously to the Secretary of State, to the Assistant Secretary of State and others, so that when they brief and they talk to the Prime Minister, to the President of the United States, he has a much better nuance of the situation rather than, just talking about India, Kashmir, and mediation, and without realizing what the issue is of mediation. I think that the Prime Minister did bring out that the mediation is really only in terms of giving up terror and the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So that was clarified, but I still think the President of the United States still needs to be briefed by his staff so that he doesn't make the mistakes that he really made in those statements.
Right. Do you also believe, sir, that it's now time for India to realize not to put all eggs in one basket? And I'm talking about the India-US relationship. We've invested a lot. We've given them a lot of concessions since Donald Trump has come to power in terms of trade and non-tariff barriers. Do you think it's time to review our US policy as well?
I think we've had a balanced policy. I think our foreign policy has been extremely consistent, if I might say, right from Jawaharlal Nehru's time. Even now, we have seen we have ties with the United States, we have ties with Russia, we have ties with Ukraine, we have ties with China, and we are, I think, ties with Europe. So I think the foreign policy of India has been consistent and has looked after India's national interests. So I don't think we've really gone wrong on that. We've now diversified a bit with a greater reliance on Israel and a greater reliance on the United States. But that is only part of the rebalancing exercise that we need to do. We were at one time too completely over-dependent on Russian arms.
Right. I'd like to ask you, sir, about the high-tech warfare that we saw over the last 7 days or so. And Prime Minister also referred to this, how we were able to dominate Pakistani forces in this new age technological warfare. Now, as we develop our ground capabilities, our air force capabilities and naval capabilities, what would be the lesson in terms of our military preparedness, in terms of ramping up our defense budget, and how we utilize it in the most optimum and efficient manner? Because we've seen one Indo-Pak conflict last week. There could be more in future. How do we now prepare ourselves for these short but high-tech warfare and high-tech conflicts?
I think we have learned, if you see the Russian-Ukraine war, where the use of drones has been extensively used. I think our forces have learned. I think the Indian Air Force, to which I have a great sentimental attachment to. I think they've learned their lessons. They've trained. They've acquired the sophisticated weapons, including drones. Our air defense system has, I think, worked out to be very good. It's managed to prevent most of the missile attacks on the military bases within India. And I think that's a success. But we have to now keep on upgrading the technology because every country learns from its last war. It's not, you can't even call it a war, but a small skirmish, if you want to put it 3 to 4 days. And they will come up with new weapons and new tactics. So we have to be completely prepared, including on cybersecurity and the fact that people will try to infiltrate your systems and try and bring them down without even firing a shot. Right.
My final question, sir, would be India is still hunting for those who were involved, those 3 or 4 terrorists who were involved in the Pahalgam attack. Yes, we've eliminated their masterminds, their command and control centers in Pakistan. Having said that, what do you think is the big internal security challenge from Pakistan, from General Munir, that India will have to be careful for and prepared for in the next few months and years?
I think the one very positive development we have seen is in the attitude of the people of Kashmir. I think we need to reach out more to the people of Kashmir, bring them more, as I say, into our fold. They are already willing to come and be mainstreamed in one sense, if you want to call it that way. And they realize what Pakistan can do. And I think it is important for us to reach out more to the people of Kashmir. I think our counterintelligence grid, counter-terrorist grid in J&K obviously failed. The fact that we allowed people to be able to come in and keep shooting people over a period of 10, 20, 30 minutes and then escape without being intercepted is a definite failure. And I think the security forces will have to learn from that and make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen in the future. We've seen other reports that talk of, that, somebody was looking at the Pahalgam satellite maps over the last, in February and March and April. Those are all indications which a very active research and analysis wing people in the United States should have been able to pick it up, that somebody is looking at these satellite maps and why are they looking at it, and the alert or the red alerts should have gone out.
That's an important point, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, giving us your views on the lessons learned from Operation Sindoor and the Pahalgam terror attack, in which Pakistani terror camps were deeply involved with the sponsorship of the Pakistani state. Thank you, sir, for being with us. We're taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. We will be joined by Sanjay Bhattacharya, former secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, and Anju Gupta, strategic affairs expert, on why US brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan.